Elijah was sweating like a pig. The dark shadow that hovered over him filled him with dread. "I asked one last time, you piece of shit." Wyatt grabbed a fistful of Elijah's hair and yanked it backwards. "Why is there a speck of dust on my boots?" Elijah swallowed. There wasn't a speck of dust on Wyatt's boots. He had given his all, polishing Wyatt's boots for hours until his hands were blackened and hurt. But I don't see any dust, Master Wyatt," Elijah said. "I ensured it's polished to your satisfaction." "Are you calling me blind?" Wyatt smacked his fist in Elijah's face, sending him crashing against the wall. Elijah felt a dislocation in his left jaw where Wyatt's fist connected. He spat out blood and was horrified to find one of his teeth on the floor. That was Master Wyatt for you. He had the physique of a gorilla and a punch that weighed a ton. Being an ex-commandant, Wyatt was the most feared man when he served in the military. Wyatt marched towards Elijah and stood before him. "Lick it up." Elijah glanced up at Wyatt's imposing figure. He shakily groped for his spectacles on the floor. "Lick what?" he asked, finally finding them. Wyatt snarled. "Don't mess with me." He slammed his boot on Elijah's face. "Lick up my boots, pig." Elijah winced in pain as he felt a hot liquid rolling down his cheeks. Wyatt had opened a small cut on his temples, causing him to bleed. Crawling with his feet, he held Wyatt's boots and brought out his tongue. "As you wish, Master Wyatt." "That's right." Wyatt's face spread into an ugly glee. "Lick up the speck of dust off my boots. Don't mess it with your disgusting saliva or I'll kick out the rest of your teeth." Elijah moved his tongue across the leather of Wyatt's boots, a metallic taste of blood lingering in his mouth. Seeing Elijah on his hands and knees, licking his boots gave Wyatt a twisted satisfaction. "Good," he taunted Elijah with disgust laced in his tone. "Clean those boots like the pathetic dog you are." Shame and humiliation flooded in Elijah. It was all he could do not to shed the tears burning behind his eyes. Soon after, Wyatt got bored of watching Elijah. He kicked Elijah by the side of his ribs, causing him to recoil in pain. "Get the hell out of my sight before I break more than your mouth, you filth, and pick up your broken tooth off the floor." "Yes, Master Wyatt." Elijah staggered out of Wyatt's room, holding his rib side where Wyatt had slammed him with his boots. As soon as he got out, he ran into Abigail, his mother-in-law. At 45, Abigail was still considered beautiful, with a banging hot body of a woman in her mid-20s. She reared her head back when she saw Elijah's battered face. "You son of a bitch. Where the hell have you been? I've been looking all over for you." Elijah clenched his jaws at being called a son of a bitch, which was the only way she usually addressed him. Aside from her looks, Abigail was a first-class bitch and the meanest woman he ever had the misfortune to live with. "I was with Master Wyatt, Madam Abigail." Elijah hung his head. "I'm sorry I kept you waiting, but I'm free now." Abigail regarded him with cold eyes. "I'm entertaining my friends in the garden. Freshen up and meet me there now." Elijah still felt sore from the punches and kicks he received from Wyatt, but he knew better than to argue with his mother-in-law. She was worse than Wyatt. She would crucify him if he made the slightest hesitation. "Yes, Madam Abigail." He bowed slightly. "I'll head to my room now." Abigail stepped forward and slammed some clothings on his chest. Her eyes bored into him and her lips curved cruelly as she leaned forward and whispered into his ears. "Put these on. I'll be waiting outside your room." A chill ran down Elijah's spine as he stared at the clothes with a sinking heart. "This is a dog's leash. Refill my glass, trash." "What's the matter with you?" Lucy, one of Abigail's friends, snapped at Elijah.
"I'm sorry."
"I'm really sorry." Elijah hurried towards her seat and refilled her glass. "He's so pathetic." Lucy turned to Abigail, who was reclining on a sofa. "Why did you let this loser marry your daughter, huh?" Abigail stretched her legs and sighed. "You'll have to take it up with my husband's stupid father. The old man arranged it. My beautiful Olivia gets married to this piece of shit once she clocks 18. For real." Scarlett, Abigail's third friend, sat up from her seat. Couldn't he have chosen someone else? What was he thinking of marrying Olivia to a loser like him? "I tried to fight it, but there was nothing I could do." Abigail shrugged. Lord Owen insisted. Out of respect for him, we had no other choice. Bullshit, Olivia deserves better. Lucy scowled at Elijah. She couldn't possibly settle for a lowlife like him. Elijah hung his head in shame. Which is why I'm making his life a living hell in this house. Abigail beckoned at Elijah. Crawl to me like a dog, Elijah. Elijah clenched his teeth. She had made him dressed in pink shorts and pink socks. He was topless and only had a dog leash tied around his neck. The humiliation. She wanted to humiliate him in front of her friends. Getting down on his hands and knees, he began to crawl towards where Abigail was seated. Her friends watched, amusingly at him. He's so obedient, Scarlett chuckled. I wish I had someone who could do that, but unfortunately, my son-in-law isn't as useless as him. My son-in-law just bought me a Lamborghini Aventador yesterday, Lucy boasted, taking a sip from her glass. I feel so lucky. I envy you two ladies, Abigail groaned. I do pray my beautiful Olivia makes up her mind soon and divorce Elijah. Why's she wasting time to do so? Scarlett demanded. There are hundreds of eligible men out there ready to court her. As Elijah reached Abigail, she showed him her foot. Massage my feet. Elijah began massaging it as best as he could. Abigail returned back to her friends. Olivia would divorce Elijah. You wait and see. She's working very hard to establish her company. Once she's done that, she'll get rid of this dog. Elijah immediately stopped massaging her feet. He became worried. If his wife Olivia divorces him, then it'll be all over for him. He had nowhere to go. There's no way Olivia would divorce him. She loves him. She wouldn't do something so cruel to him. Hey! Abigail's hard tone made him stiffen. Who told you to stop massaging, you son of a bitch? Elijah couldn't dodge on time as she kicked his face with her feet. I'm sick of looking at this walking fish bone. Lucy wrinkled her nose. Send him out of our sight, Abigail. He's too irritating to look at. Get lost, Abigail snapped. There's a heap of clothes in my bedroom. Ensure you wash everything. Elijah stood up, bowed slightly and left dejectedly without saying a word. Look at him go, Scarlett said. He's fit to be a dog. Hurry up. Bingo. The ladies laughed. Elijah gritted his teeth in anguish as he left the garden. For the past 3 years, he had endured terrible humiliation at the hands of the Leewood family. Lord Owen had picked him up from the streets and brought him to live in his mansion. The Leewood family made no efforts to hide their disdain for Elijah. He was immediately loathed by everyone except Lord Owen, who treated him like his own son. However, ever since Lord Owen fell seriously sick and became bedridden 3 years ago, the Leewood family treated Elijah poorly, like a measly slave. Just as soon as he turned around the corner, he heard a loud cry erupted from the nursing room where Lord Owen lay. Lord Owen is dead, one of the elderly nurses screamed. Lord Owen's death brought great grief on the Leewood household. But Elijah felt worse grief than the rest. Lord Owen wasn't just his savior. He was more like a father to him. A week after Lord Owen's solemn funeral, the Leewood family gathered around to choose a new leader as well as read Lord Owen's will. At 85 years, Lord Owen had many children and grandchildren. His vast wealth and properties were to be shared accordingly amongst his heirs. This was why the entire family of the Leewood family were gathered from across the world for this occasion. Servants went round, offering food and drinks. What would you like, dear? Elijah asked Olivia. Do you want me to refill your glass or clear your plates? Olivia shot him a look of disgust. What's the matter with you? Do I look like I want something? I'm just trying to make sure you're comfortable, dear, Elijah said, his voice weak. Olivia hissed. It's no skin off your nose if I'm comfortable or not. Go wash the other guests' feet. Yes, dear. Elijah rose to his feet and, taking the basin of water, he wandered aimlessly around the hall, washing each guest's feet. As he did so, he stole occasional glances at Olivia. She was a beauty to behold. She got her eyes and figure from her mother and her ruthlessness from her father. Additionally, she was Lord Owen's favorite grandchild. Olivia worked very hard as the managing director of the Leewood Enterprises. Yet she was mean to Alina as much as everyone else was. Elijah knew deep inside he was unworthy of her love. He knew she despised him. He knew the sight of him grossed her. He understood she only agreed to marry him to honor and respect her grandfather's wishes. It hurts him that he couldn't sleep in the same bed with his wife nor see her nakedness. Despite it all, he loved Olivia more than anything. She was his dream woman. It was because of Olivia he endured his trials and tribulations in the hopes he could win her approval. He didn't give up. He believed with time, Olivia would warm up to him and accept his love. "Hey, Trash, my feet are dusty. Must I tell you what to do?" Came a sudden voice that jolted him from his thoughts. Elijah stiffened when he heard that voice. It was a voice that filled him with dread. Turning around, he faced Chloe Lee, Olivia's younger sister. She had flown back home earlier this morning to witness the occasion. She couldn't make it to the funeral due to her studies. Elijah wasn't happy to see her. She was the most terrible person in the house. His worst nightmare. Welcome home, Miss C. Chloe?" Elijah stuttered as he poured fresh water into the basin and began washing her feet with an unsteady hand. Chloe watched him closely, her eyes filled with mischief. "It's been a while. I miss torturing you." Elijah swallowed in fear. He couldn't say anything. She knocked him hard on the head. "You fool. Why the hurry? Take your time and wash my feet clean. That's right. Dry it and apply the best fragrance on it." Elijah obeyed. Chloe was a black belt in karate. She derives pressure using him as a punching bag whenever she pleases. She wouldn't hesitate to kick him right in front of everyone if the mood strikes her. Suddenly, Alexander Lee took the stage along with Lord Owen's lawyer. If there was one thing about the Lee family, it's obviously their shared genetic trait of height. Owen's lawyer looked like a small kid beside Alexander Lee. Alexander Lee was Lord Owen's second-born. Age 54, he stood at an imposing height with a well-built body that a bodybuilder would envy. Donning his favorite gray suit, he leaned forward to the microphone and addressed everyone. "Brethrens," his deep voice boomed across the hallway, "we have gathered her to witness the ceremony of the new head of the Leewood family, as well as read the will of our deceased father, Lord Owen. May he rest in peace." There was a moment of silence before Alexander Lee continued. "Once again, I welcome every member of the Leewood family who had come from every corner of the world to honor this very day. Let's begin." Alexander Lee backed away after an applauding clap and the lawyer took the podium. Lord Owen has 8 children and 25 grandchildren. Each of his children were to receive an equal share of 60% of his wealth. The remaining 40% was split amongst his grandchildren, with each receiving an additional bonus portion based on their parents' share. As expected by everyone, Lord Owen's successor was no other person but Alexander Lee. This was satisfactory and accepted by the Leewood family. Alexander Lee has proven himself worthy of such a title. He deserves it. Now what was left was the family business, Leewood Enterprises. The hallway was filled with tension. Everybody waited with bated breath to hear the new CEO and successor of Leewood Enterprises. Leewood Enterprises was worth $800 million. It needed to be in the hands of someone who could manage its resources and expand the business. "Who do you think would be chosen?" someone whispered. "Definitely Olivia," another responded. "She's worked very hard. It's definitely going to be her." Abigail felt proud. She was confident her daughter would be chosen as head of the Leewood Enterprises. Lord Owen's lawyer cleared his throat. "And now for the Leewood Enterprises. I'll call out the successor's name." Silence. Everyone leaned forward, eager to hear whom Lord Owen had chosen. Lord Owen's lawyer announced, "The Leewood Enterprises are passed down to its designated successor, Elijah." There was a loud commotion as all eyes turned sharply to Elijah, drying Chloe's foot. Elijah's jaws dropped the moment he heard his name. "What?" Alexander's voice boomed. "How's that possible?" Chattering filled the hall. Chloe withdrew her feet from his hand and stared at him with unbelievable eyes. "This is a joke, right?" In all these, Olivia remained quiet. She was devastated. All her years of working hard, and Lord Owen chose this piece of shit as his successor? Abigail was screeching at Lord Owen's lawyer. "What sort of joke is this, huh? Do you have a death wish or something?" "I'm telling you," Lord Owen's lawyer pointed shakily at the deed. "It's exactly as Lord Owen wrote in his will." "Give me that." Alexander snatched the will from him and read it, furiously. His face darkened when he saw Elijah's name, scribbled in Lord Owen's own handwriting. "It's true," he said darkly. "As much as I hate to admit it, Elijah is the successor of Leewood Enterprises." Gasps of shock filled the air. Olivia, boiling with rage, stood up and marched out of the hall. Abigail and Chloe went after her. Meanwhile, Elijah was still in disbelief. He owned Leewood Enterprises. This was a dream. This has to be a dream. How's this possible? Abigail ranted, pacing up and down in the master's bedroom. How could that lowlife become the successor to Leewood Enterprises? Alexander Lee was seated on the chaise lounge near the fireplace. "The documents don't lie, dear. Elijah now runs the company." "I'll never stand for that," Abigail shrieked furiously. "Do you know how hard Olivia worked her ass to win Lord Owen's approval? According to the will, as Olivia's husband, she has the right to partnership, so it's really not quite a loss." Alexander Lee clenched his hands to fists. "Still, I hate it that pigs are in full control of our family business." Suddenly the door opened and Wyatt stormed in, fuming like an angry bull. "Mother, father, I want explanations. Quick." "It's just as you've seen it, Wyatt," Alexander Lee replied. "That bastard's in charge of the family business." "That's a whole load of bullshit," Wyatt snarled. "Lord Owen must be out of his mind to choose Elijah." "Wyatt, show some respect," Alexander Lee warned, standing up sharply. Regardless of the situation, Lord Owen made his choice. "So you're just going to accept it?" Abigail raised her voice at her husband. "You'll let an outsider overthrow us?" "I didn't say that." Alexander Lee clenched his jaws. "I'm saying there's literally nothing we can do about it, even if we chose to fight it. I just came back from Olivia's room." Wyatt slammed both hands on the table and leaned forward. "She's crying her eyes out. No idiot makes my sister cry and gets away with it. Something must be done." Alexander Lee felt the pressure weighing in on him. For the past 1 hour, he has had countless members of the Leewood family in his study, demanding answers. It was bad enough an outsider like Elijah would run the family business. Olivia deserves that position. Everybody knows that. Something had to be done about Elijah, but Alexander Lee has no idea what to do. Just then, the door creaked open and Chloe entered. "About that, would you please allow me to handle Elijah on my own?" she asked, her eyes dark with mischief. "I won't let that scum get away with this." Elijah placed the last of the plates in the cupboard and closed it with a sigh. He stood up and stretched his back. He had washed all the plates and cleaned up, and now he felt very sore and tired. However, he couldn't stop thinking about Olivia's distressed expression. She looked so upset. Elijah had least expected things to wind up this way. He felt undeserving of the position of chairman of Leewood Enterprises. He believed Olivia was more deserving of the position than he is. Seeing her upset broke his heart. He decided he would hold a meeting with Alexander Lee to discuss the possibility of revoking Lord Owen's will. That way, he figured Olivia would be happy to reclaim her mandate. As he made his way out the kitchen, he met one of the maids. "Miss Chloe wants to see you in her room," the maid said and walked away. Elijah immediately went pale. He felt spider legs crawling up his spine. His intuition spelled danger, but he ignored it and took the stairs to Chloe's room. Elijah knocked softly on her door and waited. His hands felt slick and clammy. "Come in," Chloe's voice sounded from inside. Swallowing hard, he opened the door and stepped in. "I'm coming in now." Elijah found Chloe in her nightwear. She was staring out her window, her back turned to him. Looking at her, Elijah thought she looked lovely, but he didn't kid himself she wouldn't hesitate to smash his head with her feet if she felt like it. As lovely as she looked, she was a violent woman. He maintained a safe distance from her. "You called. I'm here." Chloe turned around and faced him. "Come closer." "Why the hell are you far away?" Elijah didn't like this. The warning signs were there to tell him to leave, but he complied. Standing before her, he asked again, "What would you like me to do?" Chloe began to peel off her nightdress. She took out a pair of scissors and tore it a little. Elijah was confused. Why did she tear her nightdress? What was she up to? "Here." Chloe held out the nightdress to him. "Hold this for me." Like a fool, Elijah took the nightdress from her. Chloe was now in her bra and panties. She took the scissors and made a few cuts on her bra and panties. Then she threw away the scissors, took in a deep breath and let out a scream. Arg! Her scream echoed throughout the whole mansion, drifting off into the night. Elijah felt a chill run down his spine as realization dawned on him. If he was caught in this position, he would be in big trouble. As he made to dash out the room, Chloe grabbed him by his belt and gave another piercing scream again. "Somebody help me! Help me, please!" she yelled. "What's the matter with you?" Elijah felt his heart jumping into his mouth as he heard heavy footsteps rushing towards Chloe's room. "Let me go!" Suddenly the door slammed open and charging in was the Leewood household. Every one of them. Elijah felt something snap inside him as he saw the position he was in. Chloe was clinging to him, her innerwears torn, her face filled with tears, her nightwear in his hands. There was no way he could get himself out of this mess. He was caught red-handed. Amidst the crowd, Olivia forced her way into the room. The scene she saw caused her to catch her breath. Seeing Olivia's looks of shock and disgust shattered Elijah to pieces like glass. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. "You piece of shit!" Wyatt charged at him with a roar and swung his fist at Elijah's jaws. Elijah couldn't dodge in time and Wyatt's punch knocked him out cold, plunging him into darkness. The next day, Elijah was brought before Springfield City Court. The court was packed with members of the Leewood family and other notable citizens. Elijah stood in the defendant box, his heart pounding hard against his ribs. The judge sat at the bench and banged his gavel. "We'll now begin the trial of the accused, Mr. Elijah." Elijah's breath came in hard. He didn't know if he was coming or going. His blood roared in his ears and he felt like he was about to pass out. "First things first, Elijah," the judge began. "Where's your lawyer?" I don't have one," he stuttered. "I can't afford one." "Is that so?" The judge turned to Elijah's prosecutor. "Prosecutor, step forward." Elijah swallowed. He was alone. He was his only defendant. A tall, handsome lawyer, aged 26 with high cheekbones and flashing white teeth that women dig for, stepped forward. Elijah instantly recognized him. Alan Knight, youngest son of the Knight's family, one of the 4 most powerful families in Springfield City. Alan was a successful lawyer and reputedly the most ruthless in his field. He's never lost a case in his career. Alan was representing the Leewood family. He had always had an eye for Olivia, being one of her numerous suitors. He hated Elijah just as much as Elijah hated him. This was an opportunity to destroy Elijah, and who's better at the job than him? Alan Knight? "I'm dead," Elijah thought out loud. "There's no way I'm getting out of this case alive." Alan grinned evilly. He had been waiting for this moment his whole life. He called out Chloe to the stand. As she stepped out, Elijah was shocked to see Chloe's eyes were red from crying. "She's faking it," Elijah thought, his face falling. "Why is she faking her tears? Is she trying to act like the victim here?" Alan spoke to Chloe. "Chloe, tell the court and everyone seated here what Elijah did to you." Chloe trembled as she took the stand and opened her mouth. "I called Elijah into my room to take my clothes and do the laundry. Then he took advantage of me, knowing everyone had retired to bed." Elijah's eyes grew wide. The hell is she talking about? That wasn't what happened. Chloe choked, then started crying. "I was so scared. He held me up against the bed and tore off my dress, then he took the scissors and cut my undies." The courtroom erupted in mad chattering. Elijah felt angry eyes boring at him from every corner. Chloe continued. "I was so scared. He said now he's in charge of the family business, he could do whatever he wants. He violated me. If I hadn't screamed, he would've. Chloe bursted out crying helplessly. She buried her face in her palms and ran away from the stand. The court rained down shouts and curses at Elijah. Elijah was as pale as the belly of a fish. He couldn't believe his ears. "She's lying?" he yelled, desperately trying to defend himself. "That's not what happened. I didn't do any of the things she just said." "You villain!" Alan yelled at Elijah. "Your crime is already grave enough and you're still trying to deny it? How low can you stoop?" "But I'm innocent," Elijah defended. I was set up. You have to believe me." "Look around you, Elijah." Alan raised his hands. "Do you think anyone seated in this court believes a word you've just said?" Elijah's eyes roved around the angry faces glaring at him. He settled for Olivia's face and a chill ran down his spine. He saw disappointment, disgust, and scorn written on that lovely face. She was ashamed of him. That was the last straw. The only woman he cared about and loved didn't believe him. She must hate him now. Then his gaze drifted to Chloe and his eyes widened a trifle. Chloe hid a smile and stuck out her tongue at him. Something died inside Elijah that very moment. It was his humanity. He was suddenly consumed with rage. A rage he had never felt before. "I get it now," he thought. "They had all planned this out. How am I certain even Olivia has a hand in this?" The judge turned to Elijah. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Elijah?" Elijah's voice went grave. "What's the use? Even if I did say I was innocent, none of these folks here would believe me. Not even you, Mr. Judge." Silence descended on the court at Elijah's sudden deep grave voice. He sounded like a wild animal. "We're wasting time with this trial." Alexander Lee banged his fists on the table. "Execute him already." "That's right." Wyatt stood up. "If I wasn't restraining myself with an effort, I'd have killed him with my bare hands. The way I'm feeling now, I wouldn't hesitate to charge in there and tear his lungs out with my bare hands." The judge nodded and a gleeful smile formed across his mouth. "On the basis of the prosecutor and evidences, I declare Elijah guilty of sexual assault to Miss Chloe." Elijah looked at the judge, his eyes as dead as last year's snow. He didn't say anything. "As punishment for your actions, Mr. Elijah," the judge announced coldly and unforgivingly, "you'll be stripped of your inheritance from Lord Owen. You're hereby sentenced to spend the next 8 years in prison with nothing to your name." The judge banged his gavel, sealing Elijah's grim fate. "You'll regret this." Elijah grinded his teeth bitterly, tears smarting his eyes. "I swear to God, I'll make every single one of you pay." Elijah was thrown into the Purgatory Isle prison, a series of island jail built for hardened criminals. This was where he was condemned to spend 8 years of his life. It was common knowledge that Elijah wouldn't last long. Not every man who steps behind the bars of the Purgatory Isle comes out alive. He would be forgotten and left to die. This was his fate. Meanwhile, back at the Leewood household, the air was filled with celebration. With Elijah out of the picture, Olivia had assumed full control of Leewood Enterprises as its new chairwoman. Olivia felt very happy. She had been contemplating to divorce Elijah since Lord Owen's demise but was constrained because of Lord Owen's will. The incident between Elijah and Chloe had just killed 2 birds with 1 stone for Olivia. "I'm so proud of you, Olivia." Abigail hugged her. "Now you're free from that trash your grandfather forced you to marry." Olivia let out a relieved sigh. "I'm glad I'm finally through with him. I can't believe he was a scum all these while. He obtained a little power and it went straight to his head. He feels like he could do whatever he likes. Let's make a toast." Alexander raised his glass, and everyone followed suit. "To a better future for Leewood Enterprises and to Chloe, for ridding us of that bastard." Everybody cheered and they partied all night. Meanwhile, in the cold of his cell, Elijah sat in the shadows, his body shivering. Rats scurried around him, crushing on dried skeletons. All Elijah could think about was revenge. He had endured enough bullshit with the Leewood family for years. If he was given a chance to leave this place, he would make them pay. He would crush them to pieces until they have nothing to cling back to. Suddenly, he heard heavy footsteps approaching his cell. A man in a brown overcoat and hat stood before Elijah, peering into his cell. Elijah glanced up to meet the man's unwavering gaze. "Who the hell are you?" The man turned to the warden, who was waiting nearby, and issued a command. "Open the cell." The warden obeyed immediately. The man entered inside the cell, and to Elijah's surprise, he went down on one knee and pulled out a chained gold necklace. The necklace featured a gold-crested shield pendant engraved with the initials of the Smiths in diamonds. With a faint smile, he looked into Elijah's eyes and said, "Young master, I've come to take you home."